Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Scheming, the Place North podcast that gives property folk a platform to talk about three schemes they think about a lot. I'm your host, Dan Whelan, Deputy Editor of Place Northwest. Today I'm speaking to someone less concerned with buildings themselves than the spaces between them. During his career, today's guest has worked on more than 2,000 projects and counts among them some of the North's largest live regeneration schemes. Joining me to talk about the three schemes that he thinks about a lot is Pete Swift, founder and managing director of Planit. Pete, welcome to the pod.
Hello, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's brilliant to have you here. Now, before we get into your three schemes, I want to talk about what is sitting on the table in front of me. Obviously, listeners can't see it, but it's quite a beautiful book, which you kindly sent me a couple of weeks ago. Do you want to tell me what it is and why you sent it to me?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's kind of shorthand for those 2,000-ish projects, but also for 26 years worth of history and people and stories and projects and all that kind of stuff. It's our book, and it's called The Start of Something, which seems quite ironic, but it was something that came up from Chris Roberts at With Love when we were thinking about, what to call it, because essentially it began as a book about our project. So you can see if you read it, and for users who look on our website, that took a decision to build a project with our hearts before our heads in the Gloucestershire countryside, which is where one of my two co-founders now resides. So I have two co-founders, Ed Lister and Richard Lyne. Richard runs our Virtual Planet business, and Ed runs our studio in the countryside and is responsible for our regenerative practice drive program. And so the book originally began about that, and then we realized that it was a project, but actually it was a result of the people we'd met along the way. So what the book is it's not one of those like designers kind of, here's all our work, what do you think kind of thing, self-congratulatory. It's about those people that left a mark, and then I guess as a result of that, drove us to do a project that on paper like that just made no sense, which was buy a plot of land off Peter Livesey, restore a historic building and start to essentially manage the countryside. And build it through the pandemic, and get your pals from Field and Clay Bradley to design it. And so there's that's the story, I guess, but perhaps more importantly, the story is about that every place we work and the reason why we are where we are is that there's an anchor, and in a way Standish Hospital is our anchor in the Midlands.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's not like, I know, let's have an office in Bristol or wherever. It's much more heartfelt and also perhaps opportunistic. That look, three blokes with no idea starting a business 26 and a half years ago.
But it's going quite well by the looks of it. And it really is a beautiful book, and it kind of, you can feel Planit's ethos in it when you flick through it, and like you say, there's lots of people in here, the stories of people and how they've influenced various projects. I'm just having a leaf through now. Jenny Daly, Chief Executive of Taylor Wimpey, Chris Oglesby from Bruntwood is in here as well,
And Jane.
And it's brilliant, and lots of sketches, and if you're into architecture or landscape architecture or any of the things that you guys do, I think that is a good buy, I would say.
Well, it's not a buy. You can't buy it. You can be given it.
Or you have to be lucky enough to do it.
So you can't buy it. And we, like everybody, real tussle at the time as, do we sell it? Do we put a price on it? A really lovely guy that, if you've not heard of, you should do. It's called Alan Ward. He lives in Chorlton, and he's a book designer,
right?
And a graphic artist and an artist, and big pal of Len Grant's. Put together the book for the restoration of the town hall extension in the library. And it was a real thing where we sat with him, and he said, because he pointed us to the right printers and the right paper, and to get things like, how do you get an ISBN number? So you can get it from the British Library, but you can't buy it. And it's that thing around the opportunity to choose to give it away.
Right.
I mean, there's 250 of them in boxes underneath the stairs, but it's not time bound. Hopefully it's not time bound. You know, that story and calling it the start of something is just that.
Okay, so Pete, as you know, today I'm going to ask you about 3 schemes. The one you're most proud of, the one that got away, and the dream scheme. So without any further ado, let the scheming begin. So, Pete, first one, the one you're most proud of. More than 2,000 projects, difficult to pick one, but what have you gone for?
Yeah, well, I was going to say the practice, because that is the thing that I am, you know, alongside my family, that's the thing that I'm genuinely the most proud of. But we're talking about projects, aren't we? And so it has to be Albert Square, you know, and not just the manifestation. You know, what's been great about a project that big is that Albert Square is it's the attendant act to the town hall.
Okay,
you know?
in Manchester, just
Yeah, and so Manchester's town hall really is its cathedral. You know, it's the place when the wraps come off. Both the people of the city and the people who come to visit the city, it'll blow their minds. And the detail and the story and the art and the Waterhouse building is incredible. But Albert Square is an absolutely integral piece to the story of the town hall, but also the story of the city. So it's where you go to pay your respects when a terrible event happens. It's where you go to celebrate when someone wins a trophy. It's where you go to begin a massive race, or the Manchester International Festival, or even something as, to me, mundane as the Christmas market.
Yes,
yeah.
It's the spiritual home of Manchester.
And I think that idea about the civic heart of the home of, you know, the socialist city and the labour movement is a real massive responsibility. But because of the way that the council and Lend-Lease have run the project, bits of it have been able to come back into the public
and then gone out of commission again.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, exactly. So that idea about, it's a long time, isn't it? It's like you get kind of fatigue on big projects, and until everybody goes and da-da, and then whereas here, you know, Lincoln Square became a thing in the same kind of time scale. So in a way, there are some things that are kind of beta tested on Lincoln Square. And then St. Peter's Square Latz and Partners set some incredible rules. You know, everybody loves the paulownias, the beautiful trees with the massive purple flowers. I've never seen them in the public realm anywhere else in this country. They are a signature of that space. And so there are some hints and tips and things that they did. And for us as landscape architects, they might seem like a really mundane thing. So they have the biggest tree pits in the city. And finally, that's a recognition that you need to spend more out of sight than you do in sight to get a city to look really well established from a tree growth point of view, and they don't push at the pavement and all that kind of stuff. So in a way, that's hard work we didn't have to do. But it's just a massive responsibility. And the way the city council did it was they put a competition together, and we were like, the deck stacked against us here. We're the local, we're the, this, that, and the other, doing this, doing that, and all the rest of it. It's like we have to do something different. And so in the submission, we essentially created without giving the game away, we created a war room in the practice. We took one of our meeting rooms out, and we kind of shut it off for 2 weeks, and we were like, we have to go deep, really, really, really deep. What is the question? What are they trying to get out of that? The city council, Paul Candleland in particular, who is the project manager, is, if you could have asked for a perfect person, him, Franz Holmes at the council, and others, they are the perfect custodian clients. And so they asked really sophisticated questions, not like, how many of these have you done? How many staff have you got? What do you do for social value? It was so deep that you had
Can
to
you give an example of the sort of thing they're asking?
Yeah, there's a question about team, a really brilliant question about team. And essentially what it was hinting at was, this project's going to take a long time. How do you ensure that the people who are there at the beginning are there at the end. And for us, that was great because as a timing point of view, that was a question about succession.
Mm-hmm.
So what we said was, there's people here who are going to begin this job as a graduate and they're going to end this job potentially as a director.
Yeah.
Amazing. What a fantastic opportunity to be able to do that. And our colleague, Kev Redhead is now a director and Matt Sturton's now a principal. And Matt he'd just finished his year out and he'd been with us for a bit of time. Kev was one of our senior landscape architects, been with us for 24 of our 26 years. So we delivered on our promise to the council. We said, we are not going to chop and change the bodies and there's going to be and it was really hard. But the thing that really set it aside, perhaps some other projects apart from Bramley Moor, is the client. They delivered on all their promises as well.
Right.
So we had to be co-located in the town hall with the team.
Okay.
So it was Planit, Arrett, Purcell, Ramble, Turner Towns, everybody who was in Faithful and Gould was involved in that project had to be, and you had to say how you would deal with your co-location, what you would learn and all that kind of stuff. Everybody'd left the town hall. There was no heating. There was no photocopier. There was no, luckily the lights were on just, but essentially the town hall was being decommissioned and there were bits of the town hall that had never even been occupied.
Wow.
Because the top floors, no one had ever been there. The heating didn't work. When it comes out, it really will. There is a Netflix documentary in it. It's a phenomenal project.
Well, I was going to ask because the budget for the project has been has made the headlines, hasn't it? I think the original budget was. I'm just reading a past story of ours now. The budget rose in October last year from 353.8 million to 429.8 million, which is a significant rise, £76 million rise. And I think there's people who say, yes, it's a grade 1 listed building. You need to invest this money, otherwise, the unthinkable. But that is a significant chunk of
I don't subscribe to that unthinkable thing. I think the best explanation of that is a phenomenal book by a Danish academic called Brent Freiberg. I think that's his name. I don't know if that's how you say it. And someone else. And it's called How Big Projects Get Done. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely. If you're in that world of understanding risk of big projects, the opening story is the story of the Sydney Opera House. That it essentially was the only job that Utzon did his entire life. We did do other projects, but essentially started and finished him as a professional in one job. But if you look at what the Sydney Opera House is worth to the Australian economy today versus what was spent versus what the budget was, the only thing you need for those budgets, whether it's the factory, whether it's the Scottish Parliament, think of other, Eden Project. Think of other great buildings that sadly we don't do enough of nowadays. All you need, the book says, perfect line, I'll paraphrase it. All you need is a budget that is good enough to get people to sign up to.
Right.
In other words, if someone says, there's no way we can do that, if it's going to cost that, we're not even starting.
Okay.
Or someone says, only 50 million. Well, to be honest, it's easier getting 150 million out of government. So it's not really a project for us. So you kill that project in the same way as if you say, HS2, phenomenal example, HS2 is like, you've just got to price it in a different way. And the point around the town hall and the town hall extension in the library is that they're not just civic assets. They are things that you have to divide everything probably by 200 because that's how much longer it's going to last as a result of what's going on now.
Okay.
So if you were Brumwood and you do an office building, you do appraisal, you'd be thinking, yeah, it's worth spending 20 million today because it's going to last X amount of years. So I think there is something about, and it's always going to be the case, but I think particularly around, that's our House of Parliament project. There's a reason why the House of Parliament is taking so long to get off. And it's because there's, 7,000 windows. So that's the point about the town hall is everything is multiples of a number that you don't quite know what it is. So not only do you not know on day one how many stained glass windows need to be replaced, you don't even know if there's enough people out there to do it. You don't even know if the skill exists. What do you grow at the end of the project? You grow the project, but what you also grow are 60 stonemasons, 150 people who can do stained glass windows. So then the next time they do it, it's 20% less.
Yeah. So there's an ongoing training program as well.
And that's really, if I was to look at that project and think, what the City Council invested in, they've invested in the future and people. And
so when you see that figure, then you just think, well, that's the price. That's
it is.
Yeah. That's the price.
And I know that's hard, and it sounds maybe a little bit kind of glib, but ultimately that's the difference between investing in something and paying for something. And is look at all those people who've gone. I mean, the apprenticeship program we all signed up to, the M-Future apprenticeship program, it's one of the greatest pieces of civic giving back that any city council is likely to do in current time. And it's just, you don't question it. You get on and do it. So it generates skills and people and jobs. If we're looking at a national retrofit program, and for every town hall here, there's 10 other projects in Rochdale and Oldham and Stockport and Liverpool and Leeds and wherever, it's like, guess what? All those people are going to do those things.
Yeah, for sure.
As opposed to get to the end of the town hall project and it's all gone.
Yeah. Well, we are all extremely excited to see that scaffolding come down and the tarpaulin come off. It feels like for as long as I've been doing this job, it's been covered.
Yeah.
But I've been reporting on this project for this whole time. So yeah, I'm very excited. Okay, let's move on to the second scheme we're going to talk about today. So this is the one that got away, or the one you wish you had done. So people interpret this in different ways. So the one that got away might be one that you bid for but didn't get, or one that you're involved in and then ultimately didn't see through. The one you wish you'd done. It also could be, one that you look at that someone else did, you weren't involved in, but that you admire. So what have you chosen for?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's a bit of all those, but my answer is going to be different than any of them. Because I did think, started about projects, and you look at Mayfield, and we were the underbidder with Urban and Civic, but we built a really great relationship with AHMM and Urban and Civic, which has endured somewhere else. And our ex-colleague, Duncan Peabody, is now the director of landscape at SEW, and so it's his park. And so I feel great, get on with it, and with the generosity and the power of people like Martin Evans and Lancet behind it, it'll be amazing. And I quite like the fact that we can watch it happen. And the same thing goes for Piccadilly Gardens. It's like, it's a poison chalice, but if you get it right, it's going to be amazing. And my pals at LDA, good luck, but in Bring Sister, probably that was the one I would have used, I think.
Okay.
When we pitched for that, we put everything in.
So Sister, formerly known as ID Manchester. And then the Bruntwood Site team picked SLA. They're the best landscape architects in the world, and they're in Manchester. And LDA are in Manchester, and SEW are in Manchester. And it's like rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah.
So from that point of view, crack on. There's enough in here for all of us to work and do great work. But the expectation, the quality, the conversation, the profile, sometimes the best thing to do is to just step back and let other things happen. And, I wish them nothing but good luck. And I know that they'll deliver because they're all great practices. Up until that point, there were other landscape practices and other design practices in the city, but a bit like when there was that kind of, I can't remember the year, but the great influx of like London architecture practices setting up Manchester studios, there's a bump, isn't there? There's a kind of lift.
Well, then you kind of got to up your game, haven't you?
Yeah.
People getting in. And
brilliant. Some more of that, please.
Yeah, it's good for the city, isn't it?
Massive for the city. And you have to, if you genuinely believe that, shaping and growing quality places is why you get out bedding and union, then why would you not want that? It speaks as to where the city is in its growth profile. There's a level of maturity. If those people are doing amazing things at Battersea Power Station and the Olympic Park and, the middle of Copenhagen and whatever, it's like, Well, it must say something, mustn't it, about here?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Piccadilly Gardens is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I could imagine that if you'd have won Piccadilly Gardens, great, you'd have been buzzing because it's a great opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
But you didn't, and I can still at the same time imagine you breathing a sigh of relief.
Yeah, without doubt.
because it's such a tricky project.
The problem is it's as much a social project as a design project. It's a societal project, and ironically, we approached SLA to pair with us to pitch, and it came out with a very, very philosophical response, which I won't need to go into now. But I went to Denmark to see them, and they came back with something that really sat with me for quite a long time positively, and essentially it was how you use your time, and but also that point around the fact that there are a series of sort of societal, social issues that manifest in Piccadilly Gardens in the same way as they manifest at probably 1,000 analogous public spaces in big cities that aren't capitals around the world.
That are close to train stations.
Correct.
For sure.
Yeah, and so that there are those kind of universal truths, and I think the problem is that they're also then universal problems, so they're really, really hard to fix, and they're really, really hard to try and put in a brief. Can you fix this problem
through landscape,
through landscape and public realm? That's a big ask.
Yeah,
that's a massive ask.
So you've not chosen.
So I've not even though I've spoken about it, I've not chosen them, and it's the thing that probably, it is the story that I feel needs to be told, which is Liverpool losing its World Heritage status.
Okay. Very much one that got away.
Yeah, it massively got away, and I say that with because I was in the room. So if you think about it, the city began the kind of final drop of losing its World Heritage status not long before we went into lockdown and the pandemic arrived, and it was quite clear through initially our work on Liverpool Waters and then conversation around the stadium that this was last chance saloon. And what you also had going on at the time clearly was a very difficult situation at the City Council in Liverpool with the leader and various other things that don't need to go into here. But fundamentally, that idea of, well, we don't need it, it's only a badge. And the understanding that everything here is not about cause and effect. Is the city had set itself up for me, from what I know about World Heritage status now, for a very difficult task in that its site was too big. It was too poorly defined, or actually too over-defined, because it tried to cover a massive geography, but massively underfunded and underloved and understood, if that's a word. And that was the biggest point, the point about being understood. And the idea that World Heritage sites have what are called outstanding universal value. And so our pal Rob Burns, who used to work for the City Council, we embarked on this kind of almost like a pet project through the Liverpool Waters project to say, you can have your cake and eat it. You're not losing anything. And actually, you look at Bramley Moor now and you realise that I was right. Historic England had been around there as an exemplar of historic reuse and repurposing. The City of Liverpool has repurposed its docks since it built its first dock, which is now underneath John Lewis in Liverpool 1. So that story of reinvention is a story of the city. So if then you're going to take away that badge, acknowledgement, story, status, because somebody's doing the next bit of filling in a dock, that's wrong. So I got involved with the mayoral task force with Professor Michael Parkinson and a variety, and Sir David Henshaw and NML, National Museums Liverpool, and others, but also helping the city write what was called their desired state of conservation report. I'm not a World Heritage expert, but getting into the ribs of it through the Liverpool Waters project and trying to correct the course on that project, where it was like, why doesn't everybody love the potential of this? Why does everybody hate it? Why is everybody saying all these things? It'll never happen. It looks like Shannon. And so got really deep into that conversation. And a guy called Mark Kitts, who's now at West Lancs, he's one of the best guys in the public sector that you're ever going to meet. If we did another book, he'd definitely be in the book. He was like, I need some help. And so came alongside the mayoral task force and the city council and was like, maybe this is how you tell the story. And so we started to use our virtual Planit colleagues to create content, visual content, to say what you're worrying about actually isn't going to happen. And it's not going to happen because of this. Put on these VR goggles and we'll show you what it's like to stand at Wallasey Town Hall or New Brighton, right, or the Ferry Tunnel. And this is what the next 25 years is going to look like sequentially. And actually, the thing you're worried about isn't going to happen because of X, Y, Z. And then the next thing, I'm invited to go to Paris to meet the UNESCO, I don't know what you call them, the sort of the head of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, with Sunil Cousins, who's the guy who used to run Historic England, with like ministers, but not like kind of cabinet ministers, like from Department for Culture, Media, Sport, people from Historic England, and me. And so I found myself in Paris, at the UN headquarters in Paris, with 3 sets of VR goggles and a story. And I walked through the door, and it was pretty obvious the minute we sat down at the table, no one was interested.
Really?
So like the ship had already sailed. They made their mind up. It was like, someone is going to be the sacrificial goat. It's going to be Liverpool. It's not going to be London. It's not going to be whatever. It's like, it's going to be Liverpool. You're going under the bus. And so we did a great piece of work. We held a virtual conference that was going to be at the Titanic. 500 people turned up before people were even doing that kind of thing. My colleagues, almost ran it in-house. And then we went to the convention, which was being held in China, I think. So there was a time delay and all the rest of it. And we were invited into the session and we listened to the debate. And what was quite clear is on the first day, 4 or 5 new members of UNESCO, Middle Eastern countries, African countries, were kind of like, we don't see the problem here. This is fine. They've told you they're going to do these things. And actually, they've also said this won't happen because. So there was a really interesting debate. And we all came off the call and we were like, brilliant, saved it. Next day, the main vote is underway and every single one of them has changed their mind.
Oh, wow.
And Norway are running the show. And all of a sudden you see like global geopolitics. I'm a landscape architect. You see global geopolitics unveiling itself in front of you because what's clear is those countries are new. And the people who are not new have said, you need to toe the line.
Yeah. If you want,
it's like the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
It's like, don't vote for them. So all of a sudden they all vote and they all vote the other way. So all of us, me and Sunil Cousins and Mike Parkinson, we're all like, what just happened?
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's like that far away from saving it. We literally all went home the evening before thinking, job done.
Wow. So it could have been so much different.
Yeah. But then you look now and you think, you know what, maybe all those people are like, we don't need it. It's like nothing's changed. Everything's where it was. Everything's being looked after better than it's ever been looked after. You think about things like Titanic Hotel and Stanley Tobacco Complex being reused. Think about the stadium. Think about what our Central Park's going to do to the docks through Central Docks and repopulating the waterfront. And it's like,
well, arguably, you're right, and arguably it reflects badly on UNESCO, doesn't it? Because people will look at Liverpool now and go, well, the 3 Graces are still there, obviously. Look at what they've done at Bramley-Moore Dock. Look at what's coming forward, albeit, some would argue quite slowly. And the city has lost nothing. And people will look at that and go, oh, well, maybe UNESCO is not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, and UNESCO are advised by a body called ICOMOS, and I can't remember what it stands for, but it's something to do with monuments. And, man, they are full of, archaeologists. And so their frame of reference is ancient civilizations and ancient cities. And so the fact is that the status doesn't work with change.
Yeah, it's preservation rather than
there's a thing called, there's a set of guidance called the Historic Urban Landscapes Framework. And so what we did with the City Council in that 11th hour moment was to essentially peg the the whole guidance to the project to say, these things are happening. This actually, we went a step further in typical sort of Scouse fashion. And we said, you shouldn't be taking it off the list. You should be using it as an exemplar because of the other places you've used as exemplars. You used 2 or 3 examples in China, used Amsterdam as an example. And it was like, this is about repurposing. And I thought, we've nailed it. We've used their guidance and we've turned it back to tell them their story. It's got to be right. But I just think, with hindsight, too much water had gone under the bridge.
Yeah.
Too many people had fallen out. Too many people had said things in the press. Too many people were like, I don't care. And also, again, that kind of geopolitics point was, there's a big ongoing debate around Stonehenge. There's a big ongoing debate about London's skyline and World Heritage status around Tower of London, protected views, all that kind of stuff. It was like, just bin that one, which is a real shame because in a way, it's kind of no one's fault.
Yeah.
But it was just too late to save.
And no one wanted to put on your VR goggles and have a look at this.
Yeah, in fact, the Japanese head of ICOMOS put on my VR goggles and I thought it was great. But again, these people are, they're part of the diplomatic corps. So that by very virtue, their job is to not make a decision.
Yeah, so for sure.
So it's just a world that I had no purchase in, like the world of government and politics.
But what a fascinating thing to be involved in.
Yeah, and in a way that story's never been told. It gets told in the press in a very binary way.
Yeah.
And you look at you cannot praise Everton Football Club too much. The work they've done that they didn't need to do. It's like the attention to detail, the reuse of the hydraulic tower, which is the place where you press the button to open the hydraulic docks in the Albert Dock. That is the reason why the city had its World Heritage status. Most of the reason why the city had its World Heritage status is out of sight and lives under the ground. It's not the Liver building. That's a manifestation of, if you like, the wealth generated by virtue of the docks. So the docks are it. So that whole thing of what they've done with the project has got physical manifestation that you'll see on Match of the Day, this, that, and the other, and in the Euros. But ultimately, it's the story of care for that historic environment that it's unrivaled. It's like the town hall. It's that they are, almost kind of, bedfellow projects.
Yeah.
Even though you would never put them together in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well said, and absolutely fascinating insight into how it all, because like you say, it's right, it was kind of reported, the Liverpool Waters master plan, bad for the heritage site, so we're going to get rid of it, but there was all that nuance in between that we didn't see what you did. So that is fantastic to hear that and understand a bit more. Right, let's move on to the final scheme that we're going to talk about today, which is the Dream Scheme. So this is a project that, if money was no object, you would dedicate your time to. So you can be as outlandish as you like for this. So, Pete, what is your dream?
Well, I started with something outlandish, as you know, when we were preparing for today, and it's something that I'm going to have to set on my hands for a bit longer. And it was a project of significant scale. And so in a way, I went away and rethought the question and thought, actually, there is something that me, the individual, would really love the opportunities to do, more so than the royal we, the practice. So before I started Planit, and well, actually after I'd left, I went to live in Japan. I went to be an apprentice to a Japanese master gardener, and I got involved with building gardens in some of the most revered places in Kyoto. I built gardens in temples. I built gardens in, sort of dojos for judo and karate schools. I built a garden for the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia. And then I finished my apprenticeship by building a garden at the St Mungo Museum of Religious Life and Art in Glasgow. And so, in a way, that's the last project I ever built with my own hands. And when the practice first started, because of that, because of helping found the Japanese Garden Society, and other things, I found myself on the telly a bit. We got a lot of requests for Japanese gardens, and we designed a Japanese garden in Leith in Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially we were so young and under-resourced that we lost it, and it went to someone else.
Right.
And I've got a kind of there's an unfinished story here that I would love to design and, build, either with my own hands or overseeing a Japanese garden, either in a public or a private setting here, where money and time are no object. And in a way, that doesn't necessarily need to be a big budget, because it could be tiny. It could be in the courtyard of a hospital. It could be whatever. But it's part of me. It's part of that experience. Has always been something that's run through the Planit veins, but never really been. We've never been. Oh, you do Japanese gardens, don't you? None of that. But actually, it's a huge part of perhaps what gave me the bravery to set up practice with Rich and Ed in the first place. Was like, I'd gone somewhere with absolutely no expectation, with no understanding of what was going to be waiting for me. I didn't even know if I had somewhere to sleep. I mean, I did, but I didn't, if you see what I mean. And it was an amazing, hugely privileged set of circumstances. I mean, some of the things that happened during that time were that, I mean, there's a book in it, building a garden for the Yakuza, which was.
Well, I was going to say, were you allowed to say?
And all the anecdotes that come out of that, but there's a big part of me that would love the opportunity to just switch everything else off, get rid of all of those calls, all of those meetings, all of those budgets, all of those programs, and just say, right, I'm going to go do that. In the same way as, I guess, somebody goes off and writes a book or goes to a retreat or whatever, is like, I would just love the opportunity to take that commission, because all those things are still live. So we did a bit of it. We brought the original team back who built the Japanese garden at the Festival Gardens in Liverpool back when they were restored in 2011. And that gave me a little kind of look back and thinking, I need to dust off the phrase book and start to learn the language again. And more recently, my pal John Norden has just cycled from Kyoto to Tokyo and been looking at all his photographs with like absolute wanderlust, thinking, I need something that's unfinished. So think about the scale, the city and the regional scale of everything we do. And actually, my dream project is something that might be smaller than this room.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I said in the intro, you're working on some of the biggest live projects in the region at the moment. But it's fascinating, because normally when I ask this question, you get this big picture thing.
Yeah, listen to
and yours. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ian Simpson's, which was greening the inner ring road, I believe, and you're sort of zooming right in and sort of going back to your roots, so to speak. Can you think of somewhere where you'd like to put?
Yeah, I would actually, and that was the one thing I was thinking, that the practice has only ever done one project in the care space.
Okay,
and you see all the Maggie's projects. And I'd love to do something in a place where, people see out their days, and that idea of something that is full of so much care and attention. But also, the point about the Japanese garden is, it's a bit like the World Heritage thing, I think. There's a phrase in Japanese gardening: it's only finished when you can't take any more away. And if you think about Western gardens, they're like maximalist, aren't they? It's like more flowers, more this, more that, more bridges, more water features, more whatever. Is the idea that if you're at a time where you're seeing out your days and you want it to be for both the people who are going to pass away and family, it's like you want something that's just instantly calming. And if you go into particularly sort of dry landscape temple gardens like Roanji, which is the most famous Japanese garden in the world, 21 rocks. It's been photographed more times than Angelina Jolie. There's an instant calm. You don't know what it is, cannot put your finger on it, but you walk through, and even the way that your entry is stage managed. Maybe you've got a band, maybe you've got to go through a little doorway, maybe something is dark and then becomes light. That's the bit. That's the bit where you know you can have like a profound impact. Whereas public space is great. Everybody experiences in different ways. People
But it's got to do so much, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, and for so many people, whereas the idea of something that's supremely intimate and so carefully thought. I remember taking 3 days to place a piece of stone that was going to make a bridge, and thinking with the lads that I'd worked with that it was perfect. And my boss coming to site, and each Japanese house has a family shrine, sitting cross-legged on a towing mat looking out the window, and he went, "You got to lift it by 2 inches." And it was like, what? It's just taken like 5 cranes. And he was like, why? And he said, because it's a bridge. But when I sit down here, I can't see a gap between it and the floor. So it's not a bridge, it's just a piece of stone. So you need to lift. And it's like, so when someone sits here, because this is the only place where it's important to see the garden, when someone sits here, they need to see that gap. And at the moment, there's no gap. So start again, lads.
Wow.
It's like,
Amazing, that attention to
that
detail.
attention to detail is just, that's why those places, when you photograph them even, or you visit them, there's just something about them that just blows your mind.
Well, I think we could all do with a bit of that in our very
Absolutely.
modern crazy world. Pete, I think that's a fantastic place to end. Thank you so much for your time today and for talking to us about your 3 schemes. And thank you very much for listening. Wherever you are, please do join us again for another episode of the Scheming Podcast.